Two newborn twins abandoned in a hospital. No mother, no name, just a note. Unknown parents. 24 years later, after being adopted by an American professor, they returned to Vietnam, searching for the woman who left them behind. 3 DNA tests, 3 families, 3 heartbreaking dead ends. This is the emotional journey of Luke and Mark, twin boys who grew up loved in America, yet never stopped longing for the mother they never knew. Abandoned twins adopted by an American professor. 24 years later, they return to find their mother. The story begins on October 31st, 1998, when twin baby boys came into the world at the Luc Ninh District Medical Center in Binh Phu Province. Because they were born prematurely, just 3 days later, on November 3rd, the doctors had to transfer them to the Binh Nhung Provincial General Hospital so they could receive better care. But there, something heartbreaking happened. When the doctors went to find their mother to update her on the twins' condition, the woman had disappeared without a trace. All that remained in the hospital were 2 tiny newborns. No one holding them, no one calling their names. The 2 babies were officially classified as abandoned. In early December 1998, the brothers were taken to the Binh Nhung Provincial Social Protection Center and were given the names Loc and Ming, names chosen with the hope of bringing good fortune to their fragile lives. On December 14th, staff from the center brought along the hospital documents and followed the address the mother had left behind, hoping to find even the smallest clue. But when they arrived, they were stunned to discover that the address did not exist at all. In the records, the mother gave her name as Do Thi Ching, 16 years old, and the father as Do Bing, 23 years old, living in Loc Huong Commune, Luc Ninh District. But it seemed those were only the makeshift lines written by a young mother who was alone and desperate. Perhaps fate took pity on the 2 infants who were far too small and arranged for them to meet a kind American couple. Luisa Duarte Silva, 64, a professor at Princeton University in New Jersey. Luisa already had 2 daughters, but her heart still had room for children who were less fortunate. She decided to adopt both brothers and give them a new chance at life. In July 2000, after nearly 10 months of completing the paperwork with the center, the professor brought Loc and Ming to the United States, giving them a new life and new names, Luke and Mark. She once shared, "The first day I met my boys was the most beautiful day of my life." To welcome the first 2 Vietnamese boys to set foot in the United States, Luisa's close friends gathered in her warm, cozy home in Mindham, New Jersey. They cooked rice, chicken, and even pho, dishes carrying the flavors of home, hoping the 2 little boys would feel a little less lost in a foreign country. On the boys' second birthday, October 31st, the family threw a big party. Relatives and friends came to celebrate the chubby, adorable twins. Everyone burst into delighted laughter, then exclaimed, "You can't tell them apart." Luke and Mark were mischievous too. They often swapped clothes, switched rewards, and even traded identities just to tease people. Their classmates were in on the joke, but the teachers had no idea. On high school graduation day, the twins even exchanged ties so one could go up and receive the other's diploma, and not a single person on the school board noticed. As a mother, she raised her 2 sons in the same way she raised her daughters, with love, respect, and letting everything unfold naturally. In the arms of their adoptive parents and their 2 older sisters, Luke and Mark grew up surrounded by boundless love. They went to school, learned gardening, woodworking, and baking, and enjoyed a warm and gentle childhood. Family dinners, cooking together, trips to the park, all of it created a happy childhood, and few would ever imagine that they had once been abandoned. Luke and Mark were especially attached to their adoptive mother. Every night, the boys just wanted to lie next to her, listen to her stories, and be soothed to sleep. Mrs. Louisa said, "Raising the twins was easy, partly because I always had my 2 daughters helping out and playing with them. From elementary school all the way through high school, Luke and Mark were always at the top of their class. The brothers were an inseparable team, shining together on the tennis court. They were especially strong in math and in design and engineering subjects, so they naturally followed that path in college. Today, Mark is an engineer at Langen Engineering Company, a firm with more than 50 years of history, while Luke is pursuing a master's degree in architecture at the University of Colorado, Denver. They were successful and mature, yet deep in their hearts, the same questions never stopped weighing on them. Who were their biological parents? Why had they abandoned them? And were they still alive somewhere in this world? Mark shared, "Our parents often told us about where we came from, so we grew curious and aware that our biological parents might be somewhere in Vietnam. It would be wonderful to find them, but we're also very grateful for the life we have now." When Luke and Mark turned 25, it was Louisa, the adoptive mother who had devoted the rest of her youth to raising them, who encouraged her sons to return to Vietnam and look for their mother. She had never hidden the truth about their origins. On the contrary, she wanted her sons to understand the place they came from. In 2016, she brought the whole family to Vietnam and visited the elderly couple who had cared for the two boys in the first days after they were abandoned. As soon as the car stopped, the elderly couple rushed toward them, embracing the tall young men with tears in their eyes. Luke and Mark were overwhelmed by a strange sense of familiarity, as if they had just come home. After that trip, Louisa and her husband felt even more determined to help the brothers find their biological parents. She shared this wish with a Vietnamese friend, but the search was interrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2021, they sent the documents to the program, Nu Chua Hako Kuok Chia Li, but there was no response. Not giving up, she reached out to the YouTube channel Tuan Vi Ket Noyu Thuong, which had helped countless families reunite, hoping that a miracle would come to Luke and Mark. 3 DNA tests. Nguyen Thi Thuy Hyung, 53, lives in Lokon Commune, Loc Ninh District, Binh Phuc, near the place where the two babies were born. Nguyen Thi Thuy Hyung became the bridge who helped Louisa search for and verify information about the twins' mother by connecting her with the YouTube channel Tuan Vi Ket Noyu Thuong. Thanks to those efforts, within just a few months, 3 families in Loc Ninh District registered for DNA testing because many details matched the story from years ago. The first case was a Khmer couple who were illiterate. They said they had once given birth prematurely at Loc Tan Hospital, and the babies were then transferred to Binh Nhung. Because they were poor and did not know the way, they were unable to search for their children. The second case involved a slow-witted 15-year-old girl who had become pregnant. The grandparents of the babies were in such hardship that after the birth, they asked the Social Protection Center to take care of the twins, promising that they would bring them home when their situation improved. The third case was a woman originally from An Giang who had moved to Binh Phuc to work and later gave birth in Loc Hyung Commune. The babies had been abandoned by their father, and because she could not raise them on her own, she left them at the hospital. She said that after giving birth, she had pressed 2 tiny marks on the children's ears so that if life ever allowed it, she would be able to recognize them someday among the crowd. Holding on to hope, Louisa covered the DNA testing costs for all 3 cases. Nguyen Thi Thuy Hyung recalled, "The information was very accurate, especially the third case, where every detail matched up to 99%. But unfortunately, none of the 3 cases were a DNA match." In June 2023, Louisa decided to fly from the United States to Vietnam herself to search for the boys' biological mother together with Nguyen Thi Thuy Hyung. Moved by Louisa's devotion, Nguyen Thi Thuy Hyung became even more committed to helping her. They traveled all the way to Loc Hyung Commune, then up to Loc Ninh District, meeting with local police, going back through old records, and cross-checking the names in the paperwork. But every effort fell into emptiness. No trace, no clue remained. Nguyen Thi Thuy Hyung shared, Louisa and I have been heartbroken for days." During their conversations, Louisa recounted that when they were young, Luke and Mark had never mentioned wanting to find their birth mother. But when Louisa's two daughters had babies of their own, and the whole family gathered around to care for the newborns, the two young men suddenly stood silent for a long time. They watched the tiny babies being held, cherished, and cared for in every small way, and they realized that their own mother must have gone through unbearable pain and helplessness when she left them behind. Yet both brothers insisted that they did not want to disturb her life. They only wished to know that she was alive, healthy, and living well. At that moment, Louisa smiled, gently touched their heads, and said, "I'm only your adoptive mother. I could have raised anyone. But the mother who gave birth to you, you only have one. And I support you." And Gwen T. another person helping with the search, said that at first she thought this case would be easy to solve because the twins had full information, parents' names, and a complete address. But the search has remained extremely difficult. The records suggest the twins' parents appeared to be ethnic kin, yet their physical features resemble those of ethnic minority groups. And Gwen T. asked, could it be that they wrote down a fake name? Or was it someone else who registered the birth? The area where the two brothers were born is a remote region, home to Khmer and Stein communities. Everything there is limited, and information is hard to access. Understanding that Ms. Louisa asked Nguyen T. Thuy Hyung to print and laminate more than 100 flyers with the details of the case. She then brought them to the village elders and community leaders, going from place to spread the word and ask everyone to help share the information. Nguyen T. Thuy Hyung said, Louisa wanted to fly here herself, to prove everything was real people, real events. She stayed in Vietnam for 3 days and then flew straight back to the US. If a matching DNA sample is ever found, she'll bring her sons to Vietnam. They're still working over there, so flying back and forth between the two countries would delay their jobs, which is tough. Nguyen T. Thuy Hyung also shared, she flew all that long way just to confirm to me and to everyone here that the search for her children is real. Even when many details didn't match, she was still willing to cover the cost of DNA testing to help families find their loved ones sooner. It has now been more than 25 years. The two brothers are likely still hoping for the day they can stand before the woman who gave birth to them and say, Mom, we're here.